when it comes to fighting scams, no one entity, no one organization can do it. It is a collaborative effort. We all have to pull together because this is our problem collectively as society.
Hello and a warm welcome to yet another episode of the JSE Investor Avenue Podcast. It's a great delight to have you with us in conversation in the new year as we look to continue our journey together for the year 2025. My name is Gugulethu Mfuphi, and if it's your first time joining us, well, where have you been? Over the last few episodes, we've been really journeying to make sure that we heighten the level of knowledge, information, and exchange that takes place by bringing you industry experts to talk all things regarding investing. Whether it's understanding more about the stock markets, various products that might be available. And today, we're going to talk about heightening our investor behavior by avoiding investment scams. Not only have these grown in terms of popularity, in scale, and of course technique, we want to make sure that you fully understand how it is that investment schemes typically do work in South Africa, but most importantly, how to be aware as to how best to avoid them. So for that, we joined in conversation today by a phenomenal guest representing the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, a very important regulatory body within the financial services space in South Africa, and one that plays a critical role in partnering with various institutions and peers to make sure that you and I are well educated and understand the various roles that they play in terms of driving governance, efficiency, and effective operational activity within the South African market. The head of communications at the FSCA joins me now, Tembisa Marele. Such a pleasure to have you, ma'am.
Hi, Gugu. Thanks for having me. Lovely to be here.
It's exciting to speak to you, especially given the important role that you play at the FSCA.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm also really excited to be here. And it's such an important topic for us to be talking about. So, yeah.
Exactly. A good way to start off the year because many people perhaps have enjoyed the festive season, have come back.
Some a little too much.
Right. Reinvigorated with some energy as we look to conquer 2025. But as we know in the realm of investments, it's always a great opportunity to listen, to learn, and to build and create wealth. Mm-hmm. But there are some unscrupulous elements that are at play. This is also where the FSCA, not only working as an independent institution, but also with its partners, tries to highlight a lot of information around this. But let's take two steps back.
Sure.
Just to understand what it is that FSCA does.
Yeah. So, thanks, Gugu. Absolutely. When it comes to fighting scams, no one entity, no one organization can do it. It is a collaborative effort. Mm-hmm. We all have to pull together because this is our problem collectively as society. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, the FSCA is South Africa's first ever dedicated market conduct regulator. And that's just a fancy way of saying that we are the authority that supervises the financial sector and how financial institutions treat you and I. So how they conduct themselves, whether or not they treat us fairly, because all of us are customers in some way. If you have a bank account, if you belong to a pension fund, or you are interacting with a financial institution, how they then treat you, what products they sell you, whether those products are good for you, have they been tested, all of those things. That's what we regulate.
Exactly. And I think it's so important, because typically, as you say, we as customers just get the end experience of whatever product or institution we're interacting with. But there's a lot of camaraderie and partnership that takes place at the top, naturally regulating and monitoring controls, but also making sure that we get the buy-in of many of the financial services players, right, in the industry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's important to look at it that way because even though we are regulating the sector, we're not just some bulldog that's out to get you with a stick should you do something wrong. It is in our best interest as authorities in the sector, but also as the financial institutions and as the customers that we all work together and we all pull towards the same direction.
Perfect. And this is important because I think for many of us, we typically might not be aware of the workings in the background, all in an effort to make sure that we have a much more pleasant experience when it comes to financial services.
Yeah.
But sometimes our experiences are unpleasant when it comes to scams.
I tell you.
Yep. And they've been growing in prominence as well as techniques. Maybe let's just paint an overview around, I guess, the culture and the themes we see regarding investment scams in South Africa.
You see, this is the problem with any scam, or most scams, let me say. They happen somewhere in the shadows. Mm-hmm. They happen in a very clandestine way. You know, a lot of these scams, meetings are being held at schools or, you know, community halls, church halls, or places of worship. And by the time they come to the light, it's because somebody has lost money.
Yes.
And by the time the authorities step in, it's oftentimes a little late for those that have already lost money. So this is an important thing for us to tackle. And it is a problem that, as you say, is growing because there's now the trend of social media. And this is one of the big things we're seeing. Social media being used to push a lot of the scams. You may have been aware of recent deepfake scams where AI-generated videos of people talking about these amazing investments
and
how
these
much
are prominent people, right?
Yeah.
People that we trust, that we respect within the business and investment landscape in South Africa.
Yeah. So think about this. I listen to Gugu every day on her show, and then I'm scrolling nicely just before bed, and I look at a video, and here she is telling me that she's invested in some kettle or whatever scheme that is running at the time, and I'm thinking, I trust her. Yeah. She gives me all of my financial news on the daily. I trust her. Of course, I'm going to put my money in there. If she says this is good, I'm buying in. Meanwhile, Gugu has never even been there to give that video or knows anything about this scheme. And a lot of people have invested thinking that that was her. And that is the deepfake scams that they use. It's really, really becoming prominent. And that's a problem. Earlier this year, the FSCA put out what we call the Regulatory Actions Report. And it was the second time we're doing this. And the reason for that is we wanted to give a sense of what we do when we take regulatory action and how we approach that, and some of the things that we're finding, some of the trends. And it is such a lovely read, even if we do say so ourselves. It's such a great read for anyone that wants to understand how we regulate the sector. But in there is a section around investment scams. And we talk about what we are seeing, what are some of the trends we are seeing. And I can't go into all of that here. And I really would encourage people to go and find that and read that Regulatory Actions Report.
Do we find it on your website?
On our website, it's there. And the reason I would like for people to do a deeper dive into that is because there are a lot more of these scams and tactics and trends that are popping up than what we are able to cover.
Yes.
But what I would like to highlight is, one, if you look at social media and the deepfake scams, a lot of the things that happen around scams, people are using their friends, their families, teachers at school, familiar people at church, or whatever places of worship. And so that is how these grow in popularity. And as those grow, people lose money. Yeah. And so social media is a really key one to be aware of and to be mindful of. Not everything that pops up on your feed is good for you.
100%. And we'll talk about that in a lot more detail, but you're touching on something that I think is so pertinent right now. The use of people that you have a close relationship with speaks to, I guess, the psychology of how scams typically work. And psychology is something that you studied towards you, a concept and a subject that you're very astute in. Trust is essentially the currency that these scammers are relying on, that the people in your circle are people that you'll trust, and essentially through that, they'll be able to get you to give them some money. Let's talk about that concept as to how we also shouldn't be easily deceived or swayed by just putting our trust in random people.
Yeah. So when it comes to the psychology of people and how we approach these investment scams, there's no one size fits all. So I can't say it's this kind of person that will likely fall into a scam. Gotcha. But what I can tell you is over time, what we've observed is there are 3 distinct categories of people. There may be more, but 3 very prominent ones. One is the people that generally and genuinely are just looking for money. They're desperate for money. Times are tight. The economy is hard. We're hard pressed on all ends. And because of that, somebody comes and it's somebody you trust, like we've just said. It's somebody that says to you, you know what, I was also in a bad spot and I invested in this and I made so much money. Yeah. And, it turned my life around. You're likely to fall into that because A, you're in need, and B, here's someone you trust saying, here's a way out. That's group one. Group two are the people that know exactly what they're doing. And they're like, I know how this works.
Oh boy.
I know that the returns here are unrealistic. I know that the bottom is going to fall out soon enough. But guess what? If I go in early, I can catch what I need, step out before the thing falls over.
Yeah.
And so those are people that are driven by greed. They just want to make a quick buck. They hop from scheme to scheme, and they just keep making money until, somebody catches them. So that is a very definite group of people, and very dangerous, I would say, because they are the ones more often than not pulling others into the scheme because they want to make a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. And then group three?
Group three, I think we can name those the undiscerning. It's people that are not really driven necessarily by greed or not that desperate, but hey, it's always nice to make a little bit of money. And if there's an opportunity, I'm not going to spend too much time reading about it, cracking my pretty little head about it. I'm just going to throw whatever I've got in there. And then they find out, oh, this entity wasn't registered. Oh, this is a scam. Oh, gosh. And only then they wake up to the dangers of what's going on.
Got you. And I think this is so important because of all of these, we're fundamentally driven by emotions, right? And what our perceptions are. I'm probably one that falls into group 2 or 3 because, but I'm wearing my journalist hat here because I was doing some research. And this is around the time when the WhatsApp groups were very popular in terms of, I guess, these money trains that would take place. You get put on a list, you deposit whatever amount you put in, and the list moves up and essentially you will be prioritized when it comes to receiving a payout. And a friend of mine was telling me about this and I was like, there's no way this is real. It has to be a scam. But to try to understand the level of
we can say that's what
group,
it was.
It was.
It was research.
It was
no,
research.
I'm kidding.
But what actually threw me away was, so obviously the scam actually fell through. I joined the WhatsApp group. I was like, okay, at best I can put in 1,000 rand. Let's see, because people were putting in significant amounts of money.
Yeah.
And these are well-educated individuals. People, again, who use the network of being trusted and within a group, actually trying to push this investment. And again, it fell through, as I mentioned. So I didn't get my 1,000 rand back. I lost it and research done. Now we know scams actually do exist and they don't work effectively. But it actually tells us something, as you've mentioned, around trust, the psychology, and of course, making sure that they use a network of people that you are able to trust. But I do think that there also needs to be a heightened level of accountability, right? Because as you've mentioned, these 3 groups of people who find themselves being victims of scams, at some point we also need to sit back and say, what was my role in actively participating in this?
Absolutely.
And not for any kind of blame or shame that we're putting on you, but just heightening the level of financial literacy and awareness we need to have too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the time you are approached by somebody and they say to you, here's a scam. They're not going to say here's a scam. They're going to say, oh, here's a great investment opportunity. You as an individual have a responsibility to ask the right questions.
Yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about that later. What are some of the things that you can ask and some of the things you can look out for so that you don't get caught up in something like this. But going back to someone like you who was doing it for research, others fall into it without, doing it for research or without knowing that this is a scam. People that are really financially literate. I think let's make this point. A lot of times we think that the people that get caught up in scams are people that don't have a financial understanding of any kind. They have no financial education and they just got drawn into this thing and they didn't know what was happening. Granted, there is a fair number of people that get caught up in that way. But this cuts across everybody. Everybody is susceptible. Everybody is a potential victim. Whether you make 10 rand or you make 10 million or 10 billion rand a day or a month, you are susceptible. The reason I say that is because, and I'll tell my story, no shame in my game.
All of us.
Because at some point, all of us have either been a victim, been a potential victim, possibly, came really close to being caught in this thing, or, we know somebody that has been, a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone. And those are smart people. But they also got pulled in somehow. So picture this. I was on holiday with my family, really tired, mind needed to rest, and I get a call. I'm chilling, the kids are swimming in the pool, really having a good time. Relaxed vibe, getaway. The phone rings, and it is somebody that says to me, they are from the bank, my bank. And I'm like, yes, how can I help? And he says, no, we've noticed some unauthorized debit orders off of your account. Now, I work for the FSCA. We regulate the sector. And at that time, Murphy's Law, at that time, we were actually very hard on the banks to say, you have to deal with unauthorized debit orders. And it's your responsibility to make sure that you fix it on the back end so these people don't access people's bank accounts. So when I heard this, I thought, how lovely. It is so good to see that the banks are responding so positively.
Oh, you're thinking they're being proactive and they're alerting you.
Oh, yeah. Did you put in mind, this is really nice. I'm so glad that you guys are doing this. And he was such a nice gentleman. He talks me through it, what they are doing, how they are fixing this. They've noticed 9 unauthorized debit orders on my account. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize there were that many. And he says, okay, to fix it, all you have to do you have a card nearby? I said, yes, I do. Jump up, grab my card. He says, please read me the numbers on the front. I read.
Red flag number 1.
Look.
Okay.
I read the numbers because I'm on holiday. Also, my mind is not thinking about these kind of things. And then he says, now if you could turn it over. Oh, first he says, expiry. Okay. I'm like, oh, yeah. And then he says, last step, if you turn it over, there are 3 little numbers at the back of that card. And at that point, the penny drops. And I say, that's my CVV number.
Yes. A very important number for security reasons.
Right. And then I say, if you have my CVV number, you have my card number, you have the expiry date, you could transact on this card. And he says, oh no, Sisi, the bank would never allow us to do that.
Still using the bank, right? I'm hearing so many examples of what we've discussed there. Just playing on the psychology, the trust aspect, building up on saying the bank as a key representative and trying to show as though they're being proactive. So that tells us a lot. And I'm glad that you've actually shared that story because a lot of people I'm sure can relate to it as well. And given the timing of the year, it certainly speaks to when one would be a lot more relaxed.
Absolutely.
And this takes us to an important part, right? Typically, as you've mentioned, when we find out we've been scammed, it's usually after the fact. And I'm not too sure if there are controls we can put in at the beginning, as you've highlighted, to be a lot more alert. But we also need to understand perhaps what it is we can do, how it is we need to manage it, the red flags to look out for, whether it's security infringements or even the phenomenal returns that might be promised. It's just a myriad of themes that we need to be mindful of. So where do we start?
Where do we start indeed? So lots of things to look out for. And I would encourage everybody to go to the FSCA website, fsca.co.za. And on there, on the landing page, we've got a dedicated section that is for financial customers, where you can find all sorts of resources that would help you to understand, the do's and don'ts, things that, because we absolutely cannot go into all of it right now. But few things to highlight. One, if it sounds too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true,
it probably
is. So if the investment at a bank would get you a 6 to 8% return per annum, so over a year, and here I come and I say to you, I can get you into something that will give you 30, 40% per month.
But let's be honest, that's the deal I like and I want. It's speaking to my emotions.
I do.
I want to make money.
See, even me. It would be nice. It would be nice to have that every month, but it's not realistic.
Yeah.
And so when you hear that, the red flags ought to go off. You ought to think, hold on. Talk me through how this would work. Send me material, let me read, because oftentimes they don't want to send you anything. That's the second red flag.
Valid point.
You've got to sign them now. If you miss this opportunity, it's just a window. You move now, otherwise, So once they pressure you into picking the investment up very quickly, it's usually a sign that something is off. 3, if it's too complex. If it's too complex and nobody's really taking the time to unpack it for you, it's probably not for you.
True. If you don't understand the asset class or the investment?
You don't understand the asset class. You don't understand the way that your returns are going to come to you. You don't understand any of it. Let me give you an example. One of the trends that we are noticing is something called copy trading. Copy trading or mirror trading, where it's usually in the Forex space.
Oh, yes.
Somebody comes to you and they say, this is really complex, but you don't have to go and analyze the market for yourself. You don't have to know all of the nuances of this market. You can just copy my trade. I'm an experienced trader. Mirror what I do and you'll be fine. Every month, people get their statements. Things are looking great. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, there is absolutely nothing happening but your money being taken. So that's something that the FSCA is looking at very closely. And any space that is very complex, very technical, any investment that has, we've dealt with some very big cases where people have lost millions per person.
And this is hard-earned money. At times, people are withdrawing from long-term savings and investments they've had, even their pension funds, trying to build up on their wealth. So I hear you.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is all of those things that you need to stop and think. And we'll talk just now about what are the specific things you need to ask. And I really would like us to touch on that. But one of the things to think about is if somebody is withdrawing all of their money, because here's this great opportunity, throwing it in there is no recourse if that entity is not registered. And even if that entity is registered, we need to talk about how to protect yourself should that entity be doing something that they should not be doing, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Give you another example. One day, a few years ago, it's one of those stories that really break my heart because it was early on from my joining the FSCA, and I'd seen, a couple of people being caught up in these scams, but this one was, it was deep. It was a scam that was happening in the Eastern Cape. It was called Ndinga. Yeah, it was Ndinga, and they were targeting civil servants that were about to retire or had just retired.
Oof.
And they would go to them and say, take out all your pensions, put them in here. Nurses, teachers, policemen, and women. And they were all withdrawing their money and putting them in this thing. FSCA stepped in at some point. And back then, I used to put my name and my phone number on the media statements because I wanted, people to very quickly get their answers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't anymore since that time. We're still as responsive, but, careful as well.
You must be inundated.
There are so many of them that you can't actually do that. And one morning at around 4 a.m., I got a call from Umama Umdala, a grandmother. And she called me at around 4 a.m. and she said, "Hello, Mdanam. All I need is just a little bit of money to pay for my grandchildren's school fees." He said, "Mama, do we know each other?"
Yes.
I said, "Hi, Mdanam. Tembisa Marele." "Yes, ma'am." I said, "No, abantu bakwantinga, they told me you have our money." They've told all of us. They put it on their door when they closed, when we closed their offices. They put it on their door. "Contact this person. She's got your money."
look at the scammers flipping the script.
Right? Meanwhile, the FSCA does not sit with any cash. Let me put that out there.
Yes.
We don't freeze assets. We don't do any of that. We investigate. We hand over to other authorities to do that. So that's one thing to really be clear about. But she didn't know that. And she was told that this is the person that has your money. And all she wanted was just a little bit. She says, "Abantwana bahleli endlini. They're sitting at home and they need to go to school. I don't need much, mntanam. I just need enough to take them to school." And to tell her that not only did I not have her money, but she probably wouldn't ever see her money again was really heartbreaking.
I can, and that is, sure, like the reality of
Yeah.
what these scams actually do. They strip people of the human dignity to
Yeah.
provide for their loved ones,
Yeah.
in the most basic form of taking a child to school, ensuring that they're clothed and that they're well fed. And again, I guess this highlights, just for us to fully understand that it's not just a couple of rands here and there.
Yeah.
It's people's livelihoods that are at
Absolutely.
stake after having worked so hard. Sister Tembisa, I'm keen for you to take us through those questions, because for anyone who might be watching this and is listening, it hits close to home, and it clearly means that we do need to have our guard up. We do need to be a lot more discerning. We also need to be a lot more accountable to not be driven by our emotions and
Yeah.
greed. And also ask the tough questions if we find ourselves confused when being cornered into being scammed. So what are the key questions we need to ask? The red flags that should go off.
Yeah.
And again, then maybe, what are the steps to take after that? Sometimes it just might be doing nothing and just
Yeah.
sticking to what you know.
Right. So first thing, if somebody says they are offering you a financial product, an investment, which is a financial thing, first question to ask is, are you registered? Are you authorized to do this? And if they say, yes, we are, can I have your FSP license or FSP number at least? Then you take that on our website, you can go on there, pop it in, and we will tell you immediately if this is a registered entity, licensed by us or not.
Gotcha.
And
So don't
anybody,
just trust that they're going to say this is the number. We
Yeah.
can actually double check and verify the details.
that's the first thing.
Gotcha.
Everybody that deals with investments, including the JSE, we regulate them. And so if you put in their FSP number, they will pop up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is something really important for us to underscore, some people will come to the FSCA, get a license to sell, for example, funeral insurance. And we say, okay, great, you check the boxes here and there. Here is what you are licensed to do. They take that FSCA license. They then go and do something else with it. They go and drive investments or do something they are not authorized to do.
And this is important. It's like basically having a driver's license, but you want to drive a truck or be on a motorbike.
You've got it.
You've got the license, but not to operate that specific
Exactly.
vehicle. Gotcha.
And so here they come to people and they say, we can do this for you. Yes, we are licensed. And some people who stop at that first question will then be caught up because they had a license. Meanwhile, they were not licensed to do this. So the second very important question to ask is, what are you licensed to do?
Yeah.
And when you've found that out, then you can breathe easy and you can ask even deeper questions about, the actual investment, unpacking that and finding out how they build their returns, how will you get your information, what's the fine print, you have to ask. And when in doubt, call us. We do not regulate scams. It's very important to put that out there.
Yes.
Nobody does. The fact that they are happening in an illegal way somewhere away from the eye of the regulators and the authorities means something is going off there that we may not be aware of.
Exactly.
And so when you bring it to our attention, please don't have the expectation that we will then pay you your money. Because as authorities in the sector, by the time we come and we close bank accounts, and by we, I mean, whichever entity is responsible, by the time they get there, they get what they get. Whatever is in there will then get shared amongst all of the investors.
Gotcha.
So you might put in 100 Rand and only get 10 Rand back because that's how much was in there, how much was in the
And
kitty.
these scammers will typically move the money then from different bank
That's
accounts
what
to
they
make sure that they're untraceable. And as you say, by the time we are alert that it is a scam, they themselves are well aware what it is they've been doing, and that's when they run. You raise an important point, because what do we do? Do we go straight to the police station? Because coming here to the JSE, won't help. Coming to the FSCA won't help because you are not the custodians of that money that would have been stolen. So what do we do as consumers? Should we be scammed?
So I would encourage people to report. Report to the police if you can, as a group if you can. I don't know how far, I don't know how they work, but I don't know how far they can go in helping you recover that money. But from our end as the FSCA, once we catch wind of it, we are able to act, we're able to investigate, and we've done this over many, many years. So I do encourage people to report. Hopefully, not at the end when money has been lost, just at the beginning. And we get this especially from consumer journalists, who have been very helpful over the years, where they'll talk to somebody who, is sharing something with them and they'll say, this looks a little suspicious, send it to the FSCA. And then they'll say, hey, can you have a look at this? Or we'll hear something from a member of the public and we'll act. We'll always check it out and see, is there something I missed here? And if there is, we then issue a warning. You will see we've issued so many warnings and they're growing every year. That's not a good thing.
So the scammers are getting smarter.
Scammers are getting smarter and they're getting to be more. So on the one hand, it's great that we are, an authority that's helpful enough to step in and say, yes, we're going to warn people every time we are aware of something like this, or every time something has been brought to our attention, or every time one of the entities we've licensed goes off script. We will give a warning. But that's not enough. We even started a campaign on social media that we call Warning Wednesdays.
Got you.
So on any of our social media platforms, you can find on a Wednesday an update of what we've covered that week. If there are any key scams that have come up, things that people need to be aware of. And that's been working really, really well because the journalists pick up on it, other people pick up on it, they spread the word. At least we can save some people.
Exactly.
That's all we can hope for.
Exactly. And that's really important. I've seen it as well in terms of the publications and the outlets that we have access to. And many South Africans would also be aware that there have been a heightened level of activity just in making sure that we're all aware, whether it's being told to invest in little strawberries or pigs or other asset classes that you might not be aware of. It has grown in terms of a heightened level of activity, of awareness.
Just on that one, Gugu, I'm glad you mentioned that. The cattle, the pigs, the goats, the chickens.
Yes,
all
there's
of that.
Always a wide array.
A wide array. Oftentimes, we then catch wind of it, we investigate. And when we investigate, there is no farm. There is not one pig to be seen. And people have put in millions upon millions into these schemes. And so just be careful. Just be careful. Anything that takes money from a member of the public is deposit taking. And it must be regulated, right? So if you are going to say, I'm going to buy this plot of land and people are going to come and put money in and they we'll put 100 pigs in here and then each one puts money, to make sure that they get the proceeds from whatever happens with that pig. Please make sure that if you are taking money from the public, you are authorized and you are licensed to do so. And so this is the other side of the coin where, yes, there's the customer side, which we obsess about. That is what we are here to do as the FSCA. We are here to protect financial customers.
Yes.
So we obsess about that. But the other side of the coin is you find people that didn't even know that this was not legal. They're like, guys,
we're just a good group of people that came together.
We're a good group of people. We came together. We had a lovely idea. And so, what do you mean this is not authorized? And so this is to them to say, if you're going to take money from the public, do your research, dot your I's, cross your T's.
Got you. I think that's so important, especially coming out of the festive season and into the new year. Typically with the new year, there's a lot of excitement to say, I want to plan for the remainder of the year. And that means, an investment club or a stokvel or some kind of informal savings club which is fine if you follow through with the rules of actually having a constitution, noting who your members are, and then approaching a bank or financial services institution to help you with that journey. But if you're taking that money to quote unquote invest it in something else, or particular products, or as you say, asset classes that might be familiar but that people might not fully understand, then that does become quite problematic.
Absolutely.
We could have this conversation for hours and hours on end, because I think if we even reached out and said to you, tell us your story, we'd probably see quite a few of levels of feedback from our audience that are joining us. But you are more than welcome to actually share your comments and your feedback on the social media pages that we have here for the JSE. Sister Tembisa, we've touched on a lot. You've heightened a lot of awareness around understanding the sophistication of scams, how prominent and prevalent they are and keep growing. You've helped us understand how we also need to acknowledge our own behavior in terms of the trust, our psychology, and where we might be operating from. If it's greed and just trying to make a quick buck, or just being very nonchalant and ignorant about our money. You've told us the key questions and themes that we need to ask to make sure that we are on track, and to actually trust the judgment in terms of the red flags that occur. And where there is a red flag, question it, probe it further, and don't be afraid to get some feedback and support from institutions like the FSCA.
Yeah.
We've mentioned a lot, you've encouraged us a lot, but what's the one key takeaway for anyone listening to this conversation to walk away with from?
Yeah. So before that, Gugu, if you'll allow me, there's one other trend that I think people need to just be aware of, and that is impersonations.
Oh, yes.
I was just thinking about that right now, that, you know, that is another one that's really a headache for everybody, because with that, you get a letter or an email or something, and it seems to be from, they've impersonated even the commissioner of the FSCA, or, I'm sure even here at the JSE, the CEO of the JSE, or anybody, and it looks legit, but it's not. So please just be on the lookout for, things that are like that. If you get it, check.
So rather ask, Tembisa, this looks like you. Is it you?
Yes.
Did you say I should invest?
Did you say this? Because if I didn't, then I'll tell you. But if you don't ask, and then afterwards you say, but Tembisa, you said, here's your letter. And only then I say to you, sorry. There's very little that can be done at that point.
Exactly.
So one key takeaway, I would say, I know times are tough. I know that we're all struggling in some or other way. And I know that it is good to invest, and I encourage everybody to invest, but find a legitimate way of investing. Ask the questions. Approach. If you want to invest in the stock market, approach the JSE and others. There are other licensed stock markets in South Africa. Go and ask, call them up. Get your information, do your homework, because you've earned this money with your blood, your sweat, and your tears.
Right?
Yeah?
Exactly.
Unless, Kesana, you were born with like a...
with that silver spoon. Ooh.
A little, But for the majority of us, we've had to work for what we have. And so the idea that somebody can just come in and take it, and especially for those that are nearing retirement, they get really susceptible to this. And you get a lot of pensioners getting caught up in this. Please be vigilant. Please approach the FSCA if you need to.
Definitely.
We're always around to help.
Definitely. Happy to make sure that we reach out, and of course, as you say, a heightened level of awareness, especially when it comes to senior citizens who've worked hard over 40 plus years to make sure that they have their earnings. Such a pleasure speaking to you, Sister Tembisa. I can't wait to touch base again and learn more about how best it is that we can all journey together into building wealth, creating wealth in a sustainable manner that is safe and well governed for everyone.
Yes, likewise, Gugu, this has been really great, and I hope it's been really helpful to everybody.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us in conversation here. And we want to get your feedback. So make sure that you do reach out on the JSE social media platforms. They will be listed on screen. This is where you can give us your feedback into this conversation and maybe even share your experiences. And most of all, don't forget that you are able to reach out to the FSCA, Financial Sector Conduct Authority, to make sure that you run through some of the basic rules and understanding of making sure that the institutions that you say or have approached you to invest with you are legit. So we encourage you to continue on this journey of building wealth, but just make sure that you stay safe out there. A big thank you again to my guest today from the FSCA, Tembisa Marele. And of course, thank you for watching. We'll be back with our next episode in the next few weeks. So if you'd like to find out what it is we'll be talking about, do keep making sure you follow the JSE.